Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Glens Falls Common Council meeting. We're going to open a public hearing for a proposed Restore New York Round 7 grant application on behalf of M. Fridella LLC. It's January 10th, and we are open for public comment. Jeff, did you want to, our Economic Development Director, come up and just chat about the Restore grant in this property? Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
How can I compete with this though?
That's right. Yeah. Well, if you'd like to sing a song,
That's right.
play the violin, we'll
I gotta see what it is. Just a quick introduction to this project. You may be familiar with this, the council members may, from a previous project we did in round 6. The Restore New York grant is an Empire State Development grant that allows municipalities to apply for funding either for themselves or behalf of private projects to essentially rehabilitate vacant, abandoned, neglected buildings. After a process through which the city council, consultation with the mayor, soliciting sort of projects that were applicable in the city of Glens Falls, we sent letters of intention to apply for 2 projects, and after further consultation with Empire State Development, we settled on the project at 178 180 Maple. This, not me? Oh. Don't touch anything from now on.
Don't touch
I was going to say, was I being buzzed there? I thought, at any rate, so this project is an application to help M. Fridella LLC, which is Andy Allison and Lara Carson, his wife, the people who have just purchased the building, to rehabilitate what most people around here would know as the Fortress or Leland Paper Building, which has been, if not abandoned and neglected, underutilized for quite a while. And so, having just purchased this building, the city's looking to support them in the application for Restore New York, which is quite a competitive grant, by the way, so there's no guarantee of this funding. But this process, the public hearing, is a chance for anyone from the public or otherwise to sort of weigh in on the process. But I think we're in a pretty good space. The application is due on November 27th. You'll also see that there's actually a resolution once this hearing closes, hopefully closes with no negative comments, that we'll move forward with the resolution and we'll have that out by the end of the month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment? Just in an effort of full disclosure, some of you may know about my history or my past, so I own a small screen printing business called Celtic Attitudes Clothing. We design and print a line of Irish and Scottish and even occasionally a Welsh themed t-shirt. Yes, I know.
That's full disclosure.
I did it. Even the Welsh. So I designed these shirts and we sell them all over the country. And in 2010, the then owner of this building at 178 Maple Street was Dan Gerard. Dan Gerard approached me and said that the basement of the facility, at the time I was printing these shirts out of my basement and having employees fold them in the driveway. So anyway, I took the opportunity and I rent the space down in the basement of this facility. So that was 2 owners ago. The new owners, Andy and Laura, are great people, but it had nothing to do with me. They purchased the building. I just rented the basement of this facility. And so we did let the Restore Grant, New York Restore Grant people know that as well. They asked questions like, would I become part owner or benefit from this grant in any way? And the answer to that is no. And we don't know, as the building develops, there may not be room for Celtic Attitudes anymore, and that's fine. So just so you're all aware, though, this grant application that Andy and Laura are applying for includes one mayor and his small company down in the basement of the facility. So, all right, just wanted you to full public disclosure, and if they get the award, I will remind everyone of this if they do receive this grant money or any other in the future, okay? And that was not a plug for Welch t-shirts. Anyway, I think we are at 7:33, so if there is anybody from the, I'll open just one more second before closing this public hearing. I wanted to give anybody else a chance to speak about the building or the project. Hearing none, I think we'll like a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And now to begin the Glens Falls Common Council meeting, Tuesday, January 23rd, January 10th. Thank you, I just struggled here. Common Council Chambers, 7:30 of our regular session. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilwoman Palmer.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And tonight we have, before we begin our regular scheduled meeting, we have special guests from the Glens Falls City School District String Ensemble. I'll ask them to come on up as I tell you who they are. They're here to perform America the Beautiful. And so we have Ashton Gardner, Emily Fitzgerald, Ellie Koch, Matea Rice, and teacher Susan Layden. Thank you all so very, very much. We'll now open up the Common Council meeting to public comments. If anyone would like to step forward and speak to the Common Council, please tell us your name and address. Not seeing anyone. I do see that we have Bike Glens Falls initiative to discuss the results of the parking inventory, road measurements, and potential bike lane options.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for having us. We wanted to come before you again after too much time passes to check in and really get feedback before we advance things further, making sure this is really a process with a lot of communication and kind of engagement with you all and with the public as well. As a reminder, we were here a couple of months ago and we talked through what we heard from the public as part of the bike lane demonstration project on Maple, and then also what we heard through the survey. As a reminder, what we heard is that people really want to see bike lanes, and they would be biking more if they had bike lanes on the roads. And it really is a great way to connect people to downtown in particular, with an interest of connecting the Warren County Bike Path, and the other recreational amenities to downtown for economic development to alleviate parking demand as well. One of the other pieces that we talked about was the bike lane priorities that Bike Glens Falls identified as part of the public outreach and in consideration of a kind of multi-step process of where are we connecting to various factors. As part of that discussion when we were here last, we proposed advancing studying both Bay and Ridge as two roads that have not been repaved in recent years and both kind of meet those criteria of connecting to downtown and to the bike path. So when we were here, we were tasked with advancing that further and studying it more and looking at what would be the impact on parking. Really want to make sure that parking is not impacted through any sort of improvement, and also looking at what the roadways could accommodate. So I'll cover the parking component and then I'll pass it to Ethan to talk about the roadway analysis. We looked at both Bay and Ridge in a very comprehensive way. We looked at a typical weekday morning, midday, and evening. 3 typical times to get averages. We also looked at the Saturday middle of the day and then Sunday in the morning in consideration of demand from churches that are along those roadways. What we found in terms of Bay is on that mile stretch from downtown to the city line, there is actually only a maximum demand of about 12 cars on the entire stretch of roadway, looking at all those time periods. And in looking at where that's concentrated, it's not concentrated in in one location, kind of dispersed throughout the corridor, with a little bit more demand on the western side of the roadway. What that shows us is that there is potential to look at a bike lane or potentially limiting parking to one side of the roadway as an example because of the low parking demand and also the availability of parking on the side streets as well. In terms of Ridge, the parking demand is higher. What we saw at the maximum was about 35 or 36 cars along that mile stretch. However, about 95% of that demand was below Washington Street. So it really was on Ridge in the downtown core. To the north of Washington, there's very minimal parking demand, showing that maybe there's potentials to explore a bike lane to the north of Washington with a desire south of Washington to consider the parking and not wanting to displace parking in the downtown. So I'll pass it over to Ethan now.
Great. The other thing we had to consider was the roadway measurements, checking out the widths. We talked about the idea of just measuring curb to curb as opposed to the entire city right away. This is a more cost-effective way to look at this. It allowed the city just to use restriping techniques as opposed to having to dig up mature street trees or move infrastructure around. We found that Bay is on average no less than 39 feet, 4 inches wide, up to about 40 feet wide further north towards the Queensbury line. The travel lanes are like 11 and a half feet or so, which is fairly wide. That's about the maximum width that the DOT would design a road lane to. We're not required to follow DOT standards in the city though. The measurements on Ridge were a little bit narrower, north of Dix. I think that was about 37, 38 feet on average. Further towards south of Dix is a bit wider, especially as you get towards Lawrence Street, Rite Aid, and those areas. So we have those measurements. We want to do a little more detailed information on that. What we're using for a reference as we think about what could go in that space is New York State DOT's Highway Design Manual, Chapter 17, bike facilities. We're also looking at the Federal Highway Administration's incorporating on-road bike networks into resurfacing projects, which is exactly what we're suggesting the city do. They published this in 2016. It's a well-regarded national level resource. So, some of the options preliminarily could be narrowing or right-sizing the lanes of travel, making it safer for motorists, pedestrians, cyclists. That would allow for a little bit of space for a bike lane and maintain parking at least on one side of the street. The streets in no way are they uniform from downtown all the way to the city line, so there's certainly no one treatment that would apply the entire length of the roadway. Also spoke to New York State DOT about some case studies. We want to think about who's doing this stuff locally. So we have contacts for some projects that are being done in Cohoes, Schenectady, Troy, things that are about to go online. It'd be useful to talk to those guys about things like snow removal, what sort of obstacles they encountered, and what sort of other considerations that they had to incorporate when they started working on the implementation and funding of these projects. So I think the next steps, we need to continue to get some more data in terms of, traffic speeds, the mix of traffic, whether it's more heavy trucks or just, light vehicles. And also, talk to you all about what you would like to see this process look like. Some of the resources we can bring to bear would be continued public engagement, asking residents along these roadways what they prefer to see. We could also do something like a demonstration project like we did downtown last year, partnering with Adirondack Cycling Advocates and Glens Hospital to do a temporary installation in advance of doing something more permanent. So that's sort of where we're at right now.
I've got one question. What do we do with regard to transit stops on the roads?
It's a good question. There's certainly guidance on it, and we'll have to take a hard look at that because that is something that will definitely be important to look at.
So I think the next steps are for you to bring those findings, if you said you've got some more details that you're working on, to Pat Dowd, the Community Development Director. He's working with our engineer, Jeremy Snipes, who's also looking at there's an entire process for the paving and the sidewalks. They're also the committee, the Economic and Community Development Committee is looking at the Complete Streets program, which would be inclusive of these ideas, to making sure that the roadways aren't just safe for vehicles, that they actually consider pedestrians and bikes and safety. So I think it's a great place to bring that information and work through that process. I know he's looking forward to giving, I know you sent some original stuff, but it sounds like you've done more of what we asked, and I appreciate it. I was interested in knowing things which I don't think you can answer at this point, but my head had me thinking about if you were to use one side of Bay or Ridge, would you suggest that it be a 2-lane, that bike path that would go both directions? Or would you suggest, if it's possible, to do one way into town, say Bay coming into town, and then Ridge going out of town? But I'll leave that to you really to talk to Pat and that subcommittee about. I know that we also met just recently with Aaron Frankenfeld from AGFT. He's agreed to help us with the citywide assessment and to pick up the bike study that they had done for us just a few short years ago. So I think that it's a great opportunity. I know right now that there's already been approval from AGFT to help us with the repaving and the bike lane on Maple that would connect to the to the Warren County bike path. But that was already under work before really I was involved, or before I believe that we knew, certainly before, say, your the bike exposition or the trial period, right? It was before all that. But I think what we need to do is take your information and get it with the other information we're working on. The other, I think that the bike path and the connector trail is being built now and should be done, I think, summer, June, it should be finished, right? The bridges in the 4th Ward, the connectors, the bridges, getting bikes off of the heavily traveled Murray Street Hill and across the bridge and then back up on Water Street. We also have approval from the new owner of One Namick for an easement that would allow bicyclists to get to Haviland's Cove without having to go back into the neighborhood. And we're working on following up with a contractor for the entire waterfront district, including Haviland's Cove, but also the waterfront area, which bike path and walking path needs to be right there, either beyond the road, I think actually closer to the water, but I don't want to, they're looking at it. How's that? We have the grant.
It's a good idea, Mayor.
Yeah, we have the grant money to already do it, right, to lay out the plan, and it's been a long time that we had that grant money, and we're now moving forward with it. But bike paths, and part of that and getting them up to Hudson Avenue, right? And so I think your information would be great for not just Bay and Ridge, but also how to connect that. I don't think we really have a good plan yet to connect a bicyclist that is on the waterfront, on, let's say, the canal, and then to, how does he get down to the connector at the back on the trail after Warren
Yeah,
County.
there's a
to
big
get over
gap
to
there,
Fort
yeah.
Edward, right? There's that, you know, you're bringing them into really some bad traffic. So, anyway, thank you, and please, do bring that to Pat. Let's get that on that committee and under the agenda of the work they're doing, so that we're working together.
Awesome.
Sounds great. We'll reach out to Pat.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Is there any other public comment? Seeing none, Peter, we have any online? No. Okay. So under voice vote, or, I'm sorry, committee reports, Councilman Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. 1:31 at 6:30, the council will be meeting to look at the city's fiscal budget and continue our discussion from our last budget hearings. And 2:1, the council's Community Development Economic Committee will be meeting at 5:45 to hopefully finalize or get close to finalizing our transition plan, and then we can start focusing on complete streets and biking Glens Falls. So we'll continue to move on that. And that's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Donahue, committee report.
No report. Next meeting will be the third Tuesday for the sustainability.
Thank you.
After that.
All right, thank you. Committee report, Councilwoman Palmer.
The Building and Codes Committee met yesterday, and we had our kind of final discussion on the updated fee schedule for building and codes, so that'll be on the agenda for the next council meeting. We also had an interesting discussion about sidewalks and snow removal. Not right now, it's not coming up because of the weather we're having, but it comes up every year, and we've talked about it in council meetings before, that there are some people who repeatedly do not take care of their sidewalks. Everybody, might have a day where they didn't get to it once in a while, but there are repeat offenders, and it creates an unsafe situation for everybody. And there is power in our charter to do all kinds of things, including clean it up and charge them fees if they don't comply. So it is a discussion we had, and I think it's a collaboration between building and codes and DPW that needs to occur. But we are hoping that we can hold some of these repeat offenders a little more accountable. So that was a discussion we had. And then we will be meeting again on January 23rd at 1 p.m. to continue talking about rolling out our operating permits and inspection program for assembly spaces, multi-unit dwellings, things like that. The Recreation Committee hasn't met, but when we last met, we had come up with some ideas for renovations to our parks, and Jeremy Schneibel, our city engineer, has been working on concept drawings, and so he's completed some ideas for taking input from the council and from other people. Sagamore Street and Montcalm Street, we've been looking at those, and once all the drawings are in, we'll meet again and decide on the bid. We also have been working on Fire and Ice, which is tentatively slated for the Friday night every week in February. Now, of course, that's weather and ice safety dependent, but we have a DJ, we have some students who have volunteered to make hot chocolate and to have some bake sales to raise money for their various projects at the high school, and we will be looking for volunteers in the community to help us staff the event, because in order to have a fire, we need a responsible adult to kind of monitor each one. We've had great community participation in the past, so I think we'll be putting out messaging with that soon. And of course, if we have to, we'll cancel if the weather demands it, and then reschedule. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Lappin.
The technology committee met on January 4th. We had a presentation from Slick Fiber, which is a broadband provider, fiber optic, from 20 miles east of Potsdam. They're expanding into Fort Edward, Fort Anne, Lake George, Queensbury, and they're looking to expand into Glens Falls. They got into fiber back in the 90s and expanded in 2012 to 14 using federal recovery funds. So they're doing a lot of the last mile stuff up north. They have a 10 gigabyte service up and down. They also said that when they come into Glens Falls, they could talk about organizing our different municipal needs and offer free Wi-Fi at things like the farmers market and event space. Also, we got an update from Orbital Fire about our WISP. We have a WISP document separated out from the policy now. We have an expectation that the policy will be read and attested to on an annual basis by relevant staff. We're in discussion with Orbital Fire about a chief information security officer. They may be performing that role, we may be doing it within the city. That hasn't been decided yet. Orbital Fire is going to help us with the recommended from the audit risk assessment. But we still have to get those details together. We also got a proposal from Stored Tech about digital watchdog spectrum, which is a camera system. They measured out like the police area and had something together, but then we asked them to come back with something that detailed some things in the parks. And was following up with Water and Sewer to see if they wanted to get in on that as well. We still had a couple of comments about internet consolidation and the cable franchise agreement, which seems pretty much what we have is what you get in terms of that. C-Click Fix is being integrated, and we asked a couple of questions whether there's going to be an iPhone app. We wanted to know if there's going to be an Android port or a desktop version. In addition to that, Smart Communities, Climate Smart Communities Task Force met on January 4th as well. Talked about Earth Day planning. I need to follow up with Tony DeFazio in a few weeks so that we can coordinate city staff and sustainable PR staff on putting together an Earth Day event, and that'll be in April. We talked about EV sales and heat pumps as things that we might want to get into a program with clean energy communities or climate smart communities, which would get us some points, but to encourage residents of Glens Falls to purchase EVs or purchase heat pumps. We have to get preferred vendors and contractors identified before we do that. We talked about some more clean energy communities things, which the point of that is to get a $10,000 grant to use for the heat pump for this building. We talked also about a sustainability committee meeting that Ed talked about, having somebody from the Capital District Planning Committee give us a presentation on heavy-duty vehicles, electric vehicles, and the programs that they have to help municipalities defer costs. So we invited some of the department heads to either send somebody over or we could share information with them afterwards. We talked a little bit more about the Antares greenhouse gas inventories and climate plan. Let's see, I forwarded a green fleet policy to Jeff. We had started talking about what stakeholders we're going to need for the community greenhouse gas inventory and climate action plan. So some of the things we were thinking about were the BID, the collaborative, Finch, National Grid, Glens Falls Hospital, and Glens Falls Schools. Jeff reported that we should have a solar project request for proposals for common council to review in February. And the next meeting for technology committee will be on February 1st. The next committee meeting for climate smart communities will actually be February 8th, because of the February 1st meeting that the councilor at large mentioned for the community and economic development meeting. That's it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Good, committee report.
Our next special projects meeting, we haven't met yet this month, but it will be coming up this Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the Mayor's Conference Room, the 17th. And we'll continue to work on the overnight parking.
Great. Thank you very much. And so, committee reports, we shall go to voice vote. Number 1 is a resolution approving the minutes of the December 27th, 2022 meeting of the Glens Falls Common Council. Number 2 is a resolution to approve the city clerk's office and monthly PVP report as attached. Do we have a motion to approve the voice vote?
I wasn't here, so
Oh, so moved.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Is there any items under the roll call vote the council would like to pull for discussion? Hearing none. Resolution 3, authorizing the city of Glens Falls to apply and receive funding under the Restore New York Communities Initiative Round 7 grant program to facilitate the private redevelopment of a vacant mixed-use building located at 178 Maple Street in Glens Falls. 4 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase water expense fund F783202600 capital improvements in the amount of $1,659,182 and increase the water revenue fund line from F10991-5031 interfund transfer by $1,659,182 for water plant filtration upgrade project. 5 is a resolution to appoint city clerk Megan Nolan to serve as the Records Access Officer, RAO, for the remainder of her current term as city clerk to fulfill the requirement to apply for New York State Archives LGRMIF records management grant as attached. 6 is a resolution to approve the updated 2023 dog control updates and fee schedule with Countryside Veterinarian Practice PC for control of dogs. 7 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase FY 2022 budget line item A45142-4371 snow removals rock salt by $6,300 and decrease line item A45142-4200 snow removal highway street equipment by $6,300 to purchase additional rock salt, additional road salt. 8 is a resolution to approve an encroachment permit for Arrow Financial Corp. Owner's Tax Map number 302-20.20-28-12 and Tax Map 302.20-28-13, commonly known as 240 and 250 Glen Street, Glens Falls, to have MLB Construction Services 1 Stonebreak Road, Malta, close off the sidewalk between 240 and 250 Glen Street for construction of new sidewalk and new entrance of the building from current date through February 3rd, in compliance with PROAG regulations and for public access on the sidewalk. 9 is a resolution to approve the warrant. Do we have a motion to go to roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor? Oh, excuse me, roll call vote.
Councilman Larson,
Yes.
Councilman Donahue,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thomas, yes, Councilman
Yes.
and Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Old business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
Old business, Councilman Dunning.
Nothing this time.
Councilwoman Palmer.
I have none.
Councilman Abbott.
I just wanted to give a shout out to the crossing guard at Sherman and Quaid. Under his own initiative, he purchased some signs to guide students to the crosswalks so they can safely cross the intersection. And hats off to Police Chief Smith for bringing this to the attention of the Board of Public Safety and to the mayor for seeing that the crossing guard was compensated, and to the DPW for installing the signs. It's good to see city staff looking to improve safety in our city.
Thank you, sir. Old business, Councilwoman Goodman. New business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
New business, Councilman Dunning.
None this time.
New business, Councilwoman Palmer.
I have none.
New business, Councilman Lepp.
Nothing.
New business, Councilwoman Goodman.
Well, I do. This Sunday, we will be celebrating Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's celebration. It will be starting here at City Hall at 3 o'clock, where we'll gather and the mayor will greet everyone. And then we will march to Christ Church, approximately 3:30 or so. The program will start promptly at 4 o'clock. It's got to be a great program. We have, for our program, we have the students do all of the everything, and it's been outstanding. You'll really enjoy it. So I hope everyone comes out Sunday. It's a great celebration. You won't be disappointed.
Thank you.
So nice to be back in person, I
It
guess.
is so nice. But last year, I must say, it was really awesome. That was our very first virtual, but it came out so good. I was really pleased, so thank you.
It's the Glens Falls difference right there.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the singing with everybody in person though. It's fun. It's my favorite part.
I miss that,
Yeah.
Let's see, for new business, or I don't know if it's new or old, but wanted to remind everyone the State of the City address is set for Wednesday, the 18th, 12:30, the lobby here outside the mayor's office on the second floor. Look forward to seeing you all there.
What time is it?
12:30. Yeah. Also, before we're done, I just want to make sure we thank Ashton Gardner, Emily Fitzgerald, Ellie Koch, Matea Rice, and teacher Susan Layden from Glens Falls. What a fantastic thing! And thank you, Kate, for getting those folks here. It is something awesome. I hope we continue this tradition for a long time. Now I'll open up the meeting to public comment. Anybody like to give public comment to the council? Please come up and state your name and address. Seeing no one, do we have I have a motion to go into executive session. Won't take a few moments, but it's for personnel, not personal, but personnel. And so, do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.